Do you feel as if reality has been altered? That something or someone has interfered with our collective present moment? Then this is the podcast for you. This is the sound of duality. This has the sound of a DMT molecule as it travels through your body, opening you to the knowledge that you seek. It's also the sound of sheep and bliss, wandering this universe, and the concept of Sonder, as you play a lead role created by these two states of being. Pull up a pew and take a seat. This is a podcast of all you touch and all you see. The guests are everything in between. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the duality of each state of being and the very thin line between each.
All right, welcome everybody. This is Drew with Pull Up a Pew podcast, jumping into the second podcast 2 days in a row, hitting it hard here. This is the one we've really been wanting to do. I've really been wanting to do now for probably going on a month, actually. Life comes up, different things arise, and people know about my business ventures. So I'm just really happy to have Nick Airus on today to discuss his book series that after discussing it, I think you guys are all really going to appreciate it, especially the fans that I have and the people that we all know on Twitter are going to get these concepts and ideas, and I believe get super, super excited about it. Kind of like people did with Dan. Help me, Nick. Who was the one that Dan?
Dan Brown.
Brown, yeah, like his kind of books, with a lot of conspiracy behind it. But I think you're going to find, and I'll be honest, folks, I haven't had a chance to read them as of yet, but I'm going to be jumping into them here very quickly. And obviously, we're going to hope that we're going to generate enough interest here where you're going to jump into reading these books, because they are right up our alley, and they really seem to contain information that's all around us that we really don't notice unless you're awake. And a lot of the people that we talk to are awake. In fact, let me give a shout out to Perceptions Today, at Perceptions Today, I should say, at Cosmic Librarian, at Where Did the Road Go, and at DMT Researcher, because I know these are all people that definitely appreciate this kind of thing and know Nick and know that I've really been wanting to do this podcast. So, Nick, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody? Just kind of give them a little personal background as much as you want to provide, and what got you into writing.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm excited to be here.
For sure.
Well, it's quite the time to be writing an FBI deep state thriller series, obviously. And I thought I would start by just kind of introducing my story, how I came to writing this series. And it's actually one that it's predicted a lot of world events, and it's intertwined with what's going on in the news. And we all know there are ever increasing number and expanding scandals in the news during this time. So it's really a fascinating moment in history. And, there should be a good segue at the end of all this where we can kind of either branch off into, I don't know how much I want to give away about the plots, it's kind of a tightrope I'm going to walk
just
here.
Enough, little teaser.
Yeah, and then maybe we can go into just some, news of the day, things that are going on, current debate. But so ever since I was a small kid, I was an extremely imaginative young guy. I could entertain myself for hours on end. I really probably wouldn't have had friends had my mom not sort of forced me to. And then I realized that I was pretty good at having friends too. So it's kind of like being a chameleon, you know what I mean? Like I have a personality, and I try to psychoanalyze myself and figure out why that is,
We're very much alike.
I've got it down to that. I grew up in Sandy, Utah. It's a suburb of Salt Lake City during the 1990s and the early 2000s. And around that time, I think it was about 96% LDS or Mormon community.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't. My my whole dad's side of the family was, but he was kind of the black sheep of our tribe, and he kind of really made sure to raise kids that had super open minds and could kind of see through social norms and things like that. You know, kind of looking at the world as an outsider looking in. And, you know, it really kind of led me on a unique path, I think, where I was so into storytelling, and yet I wanted to study philosophy. And like, I thought about going into sociology, but I thought, no, philosophy, because it's so much more broad and interesting. And there's literally no topic of debate that doesn't actually derive from philosophy.
Yeah,
and so I went to the University of Utah, but by that time I actually had already starred in a couple feature films. One of them was a like a Mormon film. I had great relationships with the church, with everyone, but I just, I wasn't a part of it. But I was basically the bad kid at Scout Camp. The film's called Scout Camp. You can go check it out. It was at Redbox for a time. I saw it in there.
Cool.
But
That's very cool.
Yeah, I was extremely informed by films and by storytelling, by reading books. I was obsessed with Dan Brown. I was obsessed with, Tom Clancy. There's so many names. Like, how do you start? But I really was affected by The Matrix. I was super influenced by it. And
how about into nonfiction, like Bill Cooper back in the day? He's the one that got me going with all the conspiratorial
absolutely.
stuff. I don't know if you remember William Cooper, Bill Cooper, and all that.
Later on, I got into listening on the internet, like Alex Jones, David Icke. I've gone on binges where I kind of absorb these different people and kind of take the temperature.
I got to remember you're younger than I am too. I got to remember that. In fact, how old are you?
End of 1988. I'm 30. I'm 30.
You're 30. So, definitely.
Yeah. But
it's all the same, man. It's all the same stuff.
It is. In college, the first sort of experience I had where I remembered waking up or starting to see the world in a different way was when we were studying David Hume, and I realized that, I don't know if you know who David Hume is, and I assume that we're in talking to an audience that you can bring up David Hume and they don't go to sleep. But when I realized that he had a problem that basically underwrote all of science and that nobody currently has solved it, I don't know why, but that really echoes in my mind as a moment where I realized that reality is a lot stranger than we're taught,
Absolutely.
And so,
it's all hidden, all of that history, everything that we've been taught, especially through the governmental educational system. I mean, I tend to say, who knows what even history is anymore, really.
So I had kind of the unique stance of I was an actor. I was screenwriting obsessively while I was still kind of I basically got all A's in philosophy. And I graduated, and I already had this huge plan about what I was going to go do, how I was going to affect the entertainment industry, because I thought storytelling is what's so powerful that you can actually get
for good and for bad. That's what's
understand
the duality.
You see what I'm saying? You can have extreme levels of enlightenment, but you can kind of guide people into it in a way where it's not only entertaining, but they absorb it better, and it has the ability to affect the world. So I was obsessed with that idea, and I moved to Los Angeles, and I think that's when sort of the bubble popped because I growing up, we weren't religious, but my family was extremely spiritual. And guys like Eckhart Tolle, or I think it's actually just Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, Alan Watts, these types of names.
Watts
they were always around in our upbringing. My sister's a PhD in poetry
right now. Alan Watts.
Yeah, we're all very spiritual. So, but we kind of had that philosophy, almost like The Secret, or the idea that if you just think something long enough and hard enough, it becomes your reality.
Yep. I'm talking about that with some people right now.
Yeah, I think in practice, I think that can become true for you. But overall, I think that it creates if you're only in a positive thoughts only bubble, it creates a bit of a blind spot where the rest of reality is going on out there.
It's still there. It's still there. I just want to say real quick, you have no idea actually how much we do have in common. I was going to say, because in growing up, I was really an introvert, but masquerading as an extrovert, because that's how I was in growing up. But I was
until
really
you kind of become an extrovert.
Exactly. It just came about because I went to so many different places, different boarding schools and camps and survival schools, and even some crazy stuff that I've been talking about, that cult series that's going to be coming out on the podcast, which
I heard about it.
Once you hear that, man, I'm telling you, it's going to blow you away. But yeah, just very, very creative. I can definitely identify with you and where you're coming from immediately, even though we haven't talked.
And so that segues perfectly into, I moved to Los Angeles after I graduated. And it wasn't that I wasn't seeing a certain level of success. I remember I was in billboards at the time. They were all over LA. I was in a couple different films. I was able to produce a film and act in it. It had some, I would say, some B-list stars in it type of thing. It wasn't that I was completely shut out, but as I looked around Hollywood, it was around 2014, 2015, I just saw darkness, man. Like the choices they're making in storytelling today are controlled by 4 or 5 major production houses who now are majority share owned by the communist Chinese. You can't make it up.
Yeah.
And then I thought about, you look at the publishing industry and it's even more controlled by 2 or 3
publishing houses.
But then you look at who owns them, and it's alarming how few sources of curation or editing, or you know what I mean, the power to choose
visual
what
and audio cues that they know about, like you're saying, Nick. That's how you can control. They've learned how to do that instead of using it by violence. I think many years ago, say hundreds of years ago, they figured out how to do it with actual providing people with more things, making them feel as if they're more free, as if they have more control over their lives, when it's actually become even worse.
Well, what I'm getting at is, it's the classic misdirection trick of look over here, not over there.
Yes.
And and also predictive programming and repetitive themes and stuff. And it feels as though in our culture, getting back to what I was saying about not always living in a positive thoughts only bubble, is realizing that in our culture, psychologically, we keep evil as this faraway thing. It's this plot device in a fictional play that, you know, it's Darth Vader. It's not real. When I moved to Los Angeles, I started to really, like, first of all, that's a culture shock right there, moving from Salt Lake to Los Angeles.
Oh,
and seeing the million, I mean, literally in Los Angeles, we're having a homelessness crisis right now. There's typhoid. There's literally medieval diseases spreading in the streets right now. It's a crazy thing.
It's all over California, isn't it? I mean, San Francisco, LA. It's
the harshness of living here, and then really examining the storytelling decisions that are being made by the major studios. It led me down the path of just thinking, I've got to write. I'm a writer. I'm deep. I think I have a purpose.
Right.
I want to change the world, and where the power's at is with writing.
And to use it for good, like we were saying, and not for the negative aspects. And it just seems like all the movies, you see them, like you said it perfectly, Nick, that I watch that too, because, you know, I'm somewhat in that industry with having the director producer I've worked with for a very long time. And so I've gotten to learn a lot about how all that works. But, you know, that like right now, a lot of the movies that are coming out are Armageddon, end of the world type movies, though we've had those for a long time, but there's a lot now. And some that are strange, like the Bird Box, and then there's 2 of them out right now at the same time.
And the metaphors, they're always so detached from reality.
Yeah.
Like the news is over here, and anything that that we're dealing with in entertainment is over here. And you can kind of see.
I think it's part of their thing. I think they have to tell you. I don't mean to interrupt you. That's just kind of, I always do this stuff. But I think that's what they have to do. It's like, I think there's something going on with these groups that they put them into the movies, they put them into the television programs because it's a part of their promise to whatever it is that they're worshiping or doing. They've got to kind of put it in plain sight is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. No, you can interrupt me all you want. That means that I'm inspiring some, excited,
That makes sense though? They put it in plain sight. So if something happens, they can say, well,
I believe I've heard someone say that that's one of the rules of sort of this occult system of control, is that they have to show you what they're doing before it, in their code, in their creed, before they can actually implement it into the world. But
I feel that. I do.
Yeah, there's an element to that. But
who knows?
It seems like it's a game of show us enough, but always kind of hide the ball and keep us asking the wrong questions.
Yeah.
And so I realized that if I could just go rogue in Hollywood, literally, I could use the power of the craft of storytelling. You know what I mean? I'm deep into the dramatic arts, man. I understand it. How to be entertaining, how to engage people, how to keep people guessing, the suspense, all of the stuff that goes into structuring the story. And then
do you have an agent
I have
now?
that kind of that profound ability to just get into multiple characters and play them all. Like I'm reading the audiobook now. It's so much fun, man. It's so much fun.
Well, that's what makes you probably a better author than most, because some people can just write and they're good at it, but they don't have natural creativity, like you just said, to put yourself specifically into the roles. But I was going to ask, do you have an agent, like for these books? Do you have any plans, or have you talked to anybody about making them into?
I've explored all kinds of different options. Like there's kind of different distribution channels and all of that. And honestly, man, the place where it's at right now, if you want to control the majority of your royalties and all of that, it's to do what I'm doing. It's too bad that really after Donald Trump got into office, the censorship got cranked up a notch. Got cranked up huge.
I'm just saying we need to talk about that. It's not for this show, but another time, and about my guy, because I think you're going to find something different with him, because he's so far past having to. In fact, you can't even find him. You can't look him up because people already have known him for so many decades. They just come to him, Toyota or Royal Caribbean or Budweiser. They just
you told me about your friend. That's
and he could. Again, we can talk about this another time. If you're in, only if it's something that you ever see that you want to do, he could make sure that it's done by the right people, that, it isn't taken advantage of, like you're saying.
Absolutely. I'm beyond interested. I'm beyond interested in what you're saying there. I think the audience understands I get it. Yeah. But, so basically after my awakening, it's kind of analogous to, the same mythological story that we tell, like Buddha leaving the palace and going and seeing the real world and the suffering and saying, well, what the heck? I kind of had that same moment. And I just decided to apply all of my energies and all my effort into telling stories amazingly and grippingly, but also keeping that extra layer of what is the power of this, of taking our consciousness through this traditional setup of like a hero's journey and picking up the transformational effect that it has on the character or the characters, and then seeing into how it affects our real life. Now imagine if Dan Brown just went completely next level, hardcore, and wanted to actually change the world. And I feel like that's basically where I'm at, or where I'm getting to. So it's really an exciting time. And
I like what you're doing. It's different. You're not stealing. That was the only thing about Dan, which is true, which came out, is he did kind of steal those concepts from those other guys. Because I read those guys' books years and years before Dan ever came out with his series with the Rosicrucians and some of the other concepts in there. The name of, I can't remember what it's called. Not the name of the rose, because that's Echo. But yeah, that was the only thing I didn't like about Dan. I love the books and the concepts, but yeah,
I learned about formatting and maintaining suspense from Dan Brown. And right. I love that you look back 10 years, man, the world is changing so fast. When I started writing The Illuminist, the word Illuminati was like confined to conspiracy theories and weird, like 8chan and maybe YouTube, back when you could actually be monetized on YouTube and be talking about the Illuminati. Now I've seen 5-year-old kids. I've seen 5-year-old kids talking about the Illuminati.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different world, and it's changing so fast. So,
well, they opened it up to the artists. That's why, like all of the, for whatever reason, it seemed to go directly to the bands and singing artists, not actors, but more to the singing community. Started using, quote, Illuminati symbols, and then people thought it was kind of just a joke.
yeah,
But then they're using it so much now.
They saw that
I don't know if it's the push through
being revealed.
Or is it real, or are they just revealing it?
It was being revealed either way. The internet, the cat was kind of out of the bag, and so they started to bring it into pop culture as kind of in a mocking way.
And they know how much power they're going to have over
very
these young
clever.
children.
They're very clever.
But
the whole idea is just to keep the narrative away from the idea that there is a powerful elite that transcends left and right, that is completely in control. And so everything, it's strange in our culture, that idea is so obvious. It's there. You know what I mean? It's in the wind. It's blowing in the wind. Yeah. And yet you look at the news, you look at our world, how controlled the conversation still is. It's really getting peculiar. And so I'm so excited to get people reading these books, just because we can lay it. I didn't anticipate us getting this deep.
Like you said, they warned us about every single thing we're talking about right now. Even though it would seem as magic to them, it's the philosophy that they knew. It's all about philosophy.
Well, we're really living through the next revolution.
They already knew this was going to happen.
I think people get it. We're living through the next revolution right now. I mean, we are.
Just
not
millions
to put
of people
ourselves on the
get it
pedestal of the founding fathers, because I think that our generation is pretty much, like you said in your last podcast, we've been domesticated. We're being dumbed down and distracted, and we're being taught to fight each other so that we can never synergize our efforts and actually create a global change. Like
we all did. It would be done for them. It would be over.
It would. Exactly. And a part of that is the cultural side of it. And if there are people who want to help us in this giant mission that we're on, I feel like you're right, we are kind of in the same box here. We're up to the same thing.
It's all happening to the same people at the same time. There's even physiological changes occurring in people that I've noticed that I speak to that are really into this. And they're talking to me. They're like, man, I've been having these problems. I've been having to be checked out for Parkinson's, or shaking a lot. I've been doing that a lot. Things with standing up and getting dizzy, people having blurred vision. And this isn't like just a couple of people here and there. I noticed it a couple of years ago, and now it's everywhere.
So the addiction to technology. Yeah, well, it's an addiction to technology. I feel it in myself. Luckily, I've known how to meditate and stuff.
Well, there's people that claim that we're moving up to a different, higher vibrational frequency.
It's possible.
I don't know about that, but it is possible, right? Or it's what you're saying, which is just more of an Occam's razor.
I think the higher vibrational
technology.
Really, everything is energy and information. That's actually true.
Yeah, of course.
That sounds kind of David Icke.
No getting around that.
It's really true. I mean, it's factually. It's
no David Icke there, man. That's
So as the internet, the free and open internet, which really only lasted for about 15 years,
right?
That opening the gates of information, it completely transformed the vibrational frequency of the human psyche and our experience. And then the controllers realized it, but it was far too late.
Oh, and so fast.
It took a humbling event like Donald Trump getting into office for them to finally.
That would be the only way that it could happen. And I look at it as I read a book, again, when I was able to actually read books. It's called The White Hole in Time. This was back in the 90s, but it was about the singularity somewhat, even before Bostrom and all these other people and McKenna.
This is very Illuminist. This conversation is more tracking the content in the Illuminist, which is funny. It's my first book. So in a way, maybe that's a natural progression that, at first you just look at all this stuff and it's like, you're like, wow, what is going on here?
No, but they all blend together.
Mind control and all this stuff. And so the natural progression.
What I was going to listen, but his idea though was that look, you're on this. It's a spiraling in of technology that is happening so fast, and it's getting faster and faster and faster and faster that we're going to hit. And he wasn't talking about the singularity like as an AI singularity. It's just a point in time where, because we keep doubling and doubling and doubling the amount of information and data. That's what you were talking about. That's why I wanted to say this, that we're going to hit a point that people's heads were almost going to explode. And I think that's
I feel like, honestly,
with people.
Not
we're hitting that time.
Oh, we are. We're in it.
Go ahead.
We're in it.
Yeah, we're in it now.
This
Not like it's down the road.
We're amidst revolution. Yeah, it's incredible. We're out in the open doing it on a podcast.
Yeah, my bad. I just wanted to get that out because I think
it was 3:33 p.m. when I said that Eastern time. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. No. Okay.
I was seeing the 11.
Enter the Aiden Holmes thriller series, which I feel like this is a good segue because
let's do it.
I wanted to write a very practical, down to earth series that is just happening now. There's nothing, something that I wouldn't even have to use the term Illuminati because it was being so discredited. And so I started really studying intensely and focusing my analysis on the deep state, this idea of the deep state. And all of a sudden, I was on the beach I just wrapped this film that we were shooting. It was called Caretakers. It was a ton of work. I was on the beach down in Coronado, that little island, or I guess it's an islet off of San Diego. And I was staring at this tree, and all of a sudden these black birds, these crows, just started taking off and completely shrouding the sun and the sky. And it gave me this idea that that's a powerful opening image for a novel.
Blackbirds are definite.
Like kind of an omen or something. And all of a sudden the characters were in my head. I was tracking this, basically this killer who is obsessed with taking out the most corrupt individuals in the deep state. And all of a sudden I realized I had this narrative that's kind of a way to simulate the actual battle against the deep state. And the books in this series, they're written primarily in first person from the perspective of the star of the FBI's Violent Crimes Division. And the guy's a patriot. He's a family man. He's that rank and file person who actually is doing the work of stopping terrorists and criminals for us each and every day, despite the fact that he's part of this overall, you could say, apparatus in the government that is in control of so many different aspects of our lives, that him being compartmentalized in this work, in this task of let's get the bad guys, let's get the criminals, the terrorists, the murderers, and never really questioning the deeper aspects of the shadow government, this FBI detective. Is that not the archetype of this character in everyone's mind right now that we're, you know what I mean, as we look at the news? Sounds like I've lost you there.
Oh, my bad. I was coughing and I hit the mute button. Sorry. Yeah, but I was going to say is, that's interesting because it's not just the people. It's also yourself. You can see yourself in this character. Is that what you were trying to say? Because you've got your friends and family.
And I think that we all want to believe that this character is real. We all want to believe that Agent Holmes is real. He's the guy who actually, if he's involved, you feel pretty good about our government. You know that they're there and they're doing it for the right reasons. And so, writing from the perspective of that guy, as he is tracking a killer who I don't want to give too much away about the plot.
No. Don't just.
He's taking out the most corrupt, powerful people, and he's doing it in very stylistic and catchy ways, and he's getting the whole world to talk about it. Excuse me, I hit my laptop.
On the way that you're talking about it, he's a representation. It's like he's a character in the book, but he's a representation of many different things. It's not just the person. It's like you said, it's a philosophy and a way of thinking, and especially with this change going on in America with millions of people becoming awake, they're going to see themselves in this character. The
character is a bit of a lens, but he's also there is a distinct character who is the Manifesto murderer, and it's intriguing to catch him, to hunt him down, and it's fascinating to see the inner conflict and the transformation of the one character who you essentially identify with, the FBI detective tracking this killer into the secrets of the power structure.
Are they an even match within the story? I
would say that.
Or don't say if you
don't. I'm not going to say that. It's a wild ride. It's a wild ride for Aiden Holmes, but by the time he's through it, there's really been some incredible psychological accounting for this cultural shift that we're all going through. And so that's why I think it's really resonated with so many people, is that you feel like you're experiencing history as you read it. And that's...
What year did you write it? The first one, Manifesto?
I wrote it in 2017, and it came out in April 2018.
Okay. Just want to get perspective on that. Okay.
Yeah, and it's predicted quite a few things, including the rise of censorship and all of this crazy stuff. And it also, I think it still is continuing to track the pulse of what's going on. And then, you get into the sequel, which is called Night on Witch Hunt Hill, and you can see how the it's tracking the news, and we're all kind of going through the same awakening process through the character of this detective, kind of truly the modern version of Sherlock Holmes, which is, I like to use some cliches in the work because it brings it down to earth, and it gives people a linchpin to grab onto and to anchor themselves in the story and understand it. And it makes it entertaining for a wide audience.
From Amazon real quick. This is what it says about the Manifesto murder. So it says Special Agent Aiden Holmes is the star of America's FBI Violent Crimes Division and a dedicated family man. Life is going his way until an audacious serial killer stabs at the very heart of government power one Friday night. Now Agent Holmes is on a chase to stop the highest profile murderer in memory. His familiar world is turned on its head when the killer leaves a bizarre manifesto letter and a smartphone beside his first victim. The killer's note is written in flawless calligraphy on a burnt-edge piece of olden days parchment paper. The cell phone is found empty, except for a single voice recording sent via an encrypted messenger app. As Aiden hits play, an eerily disguised voice rings out. He reads along with the murderer who promises to kill the most powerful and corrupt people in the world every Friday for the next 3 months, or until his controversial terms are met, following a trail of clues into the underbelly of a shocking global power structure that has infiltrated the U.S. government, and what Detective Holmes learns while hunting down the self-proclaimed Manifesto murderer. It forces him to take a closer look at what rank and file FBI agents call the deep state. Hysteria grips the case. The world is watching as pressure skyrockets. Unexpected danger surrounds Agent Holmes, and each new revelation is striking closer to home. I like that. The underbelly of a shocking global power structure.
Yes.
I think anybody can identify with that right now.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we are living through, right?
Yeah, I hope I read that right.
No, that was great. That was great.
Yeah, just so people could get a good idea of what's going on. So yeah, no, go ahead. What are you thinking?
Well, you want to read the description tonight on Witch Hunt Hill?
Yeah, sure. We can do that. Yeah, for the next one, because it's going to lead right into it. So, Night on Witch Hunt Hill.
Actually, I'll add a little bit because I think I wanted to kind of play with this teaser. It's still very fresh. I kind of calibrate them to see how well they intrigue people. But part of the catalyst of this book is when the president sends a tweet that mentions sealed indictments. And to get the popcorn ready. And then that starts this culmination of a hysteria in Washington that leads to all kinds of surprises. Go ahead and read it.
And we all know what those triggered terms, get the popcorn ready and everything. But here, I'll go ahead and read it. So it's the climax of a witch hunt. Special Agent Aiden Holmes is leading the FBI's top domestic counter-terrorist squad while juggling a secret task from the president. After a shocking tweet from the president refers to sealed indictments, chaos pulls Agent Holmes into the peak of hysterical cycle gripping the Washington, D.C. area in real time. America's most unpredictable 24 hours unfolds. As a day turns to dusk, the hunt is on. Now Detective Holmes must sleuth through the swamp of shrouded intentions haunting our nation's capital at every breathless hour of the night. Yeah, and I think that's very much in just one short paragraph describes the world we're living in right now.
But in a strangely, figurative, metaphorical way.
Yeah, of course.
But you get to live through the reality.
You're blending, some things there that are real, but also maybe hitting on some things as you would
and
put
I think that's nothing new for the mystery genre to kind of intertwine it with some reality to keep it intriguing. But it might be unique in its overall usefulness in
I almost think
catapulting.
you is nailing it. You know exactly what's going on. That's just me.
Well,
and like
but in all humility, we're living through incredible times, man. I think if anything, I just have the bravery and enough personal reasoning behind choosing to actually be in a battle with the dragon.
Man, my thing is I'm really into theoretical physics, and as everybody of you see me writing about D-Wave and CERN and deep learning and where all this is coming from, that I thought this weird concept of how something went wrong, and it happened in the 90s. And I've been saying this way before anybody else was even contemplating something like this occurring. But you can have backwards moving time. It's not a theory. It actually happens with the double slit experiments. But D-Wave computers are so big and so powerful that it can change things into the past. So you blend that with what's called the Mandela effect, which is people used to laugh at, but are now looking at more seriously because things can be changed. They're talking about literally inserting themselves into parallel universes to pull data into our own universe, because you can't do the calculations. There's not enough atoms or particles in our own universe to run the calculations, and that's why they do it. And what was my point of saying that? There was a really big point of why that was important with this.
Well, going back to just the cultural moment that we're all living through. And
thank you. That you're right. That we're actually repeating this. Something did occur. I already believe something happened, and we're in a loop right now. So when you say it's the most interesting time to live, it's almost too interesting. Things are almost too coincidental right now to be happening all at the same time between
you don't
Trump.
Think that could just be a crescendo of events?
Maybe, right. Like I was talking about earlier about that cycle. It could be that, or this other situation that I'm talking about, which is obviously a lot more out there. It's more speculation than the first one is. The first one is common sense. I mean, technology is spiraling to a point that our human minds and our bodies haven't had enough time to evolve, to handle the changes that are occurring. And they know that, and they use that against us. So I struggle between the two thoughts. And I don't want to get into all that stuff because that's
extremely relevant to me, because I agree. So from my perspective, it was shocking when I realized how shadow banned I was, just because I have this idea of the United States of America. And the First Amendment.
Nationalism, America,
freedom, the Constitution, the Socratic method, these things that are just ingrained in me, that I'm like, that's what Western civilization was. That's what brought us out of the Dark Ages. And we're starting to lose track of that. Yeah. This is an emergent situation.
The greatest generation. Really, that's what they lived under, Nick, right? I mean, that was the American dream.
They can socially control us at such an obvious level to really just put tyranny in our faces like this. Right. It's so insane, man. We're actually a part of this moment in history that I'm incredibly grateful that I've been able to kind of get ahead of the curve a little bit.
At your age,
and throw them a curveball.
I'm impressed with.
And I'm honestly, I'm kind of flattered that they think they have to censor me. Can you imagine this book? It has like it's getting there. It's almost.
Well, it means you're onto something.
Retweets. Can you imagine if every retweet wasn't scaled back in the algorithms? It's really. Yep.
We need everybody.
If anybody should be pissed off, it's me, man.
Yeah. No, but I think you're right.
I'm not. I'm just excited because you know what?
Yes.
These ideas
are
getting out there. These ideas are getting out there either way. They can't stop it. They can't stop it.
No, it is flattering. It is. It's showing that they're noticing you and a lot of other people as well. But especially you. And in everything that you're saying,
algorithms
are all trigger words.
That's what I'm saying about it being so obvious. Is there's no this is no special treatment I'm getting. It's so obvious what's going on.
But they don't want people using this terminology because they know this is how it used to be. And for whatever reason, as people, we have to take responsibility ourselves as well. It's not just the government, because we allowed this to happen. My generation, which is the X generation, and then the baby boomers, those two together are the ones that really failed. The greatest
where are you guys now? That's what I don't understand is you guys are of age, you guys are in power. Yeah. Where are you now?
Well, that's why. I don't know what happened. I think somewhere within that rebellion of the baby boomers in the 60s and going through the sexual revolution and the use of drugs, which is fine because I'm a libertarian, but they made it so recreational and so wild that it changed everything. And then we jump right into Generation X and then all of a sudden the baby boomers switch gears, and instead of being deadheads, which I used to be a big time deadhead, they turned into the most capitalistic, greedy bunch of people on the planet, that has led to their kids not teaching them what used to be taught in the 50s by the greatest generation. They lost that, of teaching civics, teaching what the Constitution is about, teaching what the Declaration of Independence, what the Bill of Rights is about.
And that's even more lost on my generation as well.
That's what I was saying. That's why I'm so proud of you and your age that you get it. If people your age, if they all got it, we'd be okay. The scary part right now, and I'll stop this one thing, is this whole AOC and these young people that have been bred, and I mean that it obviously in a philosophical way, not really bred, but to come into Congress at such a time because of what I said in that podcast. The greatest generation is gone. The people that can witness, right, of atrocities, of real atrocities, of what happened in World War II, to Stalin, the Khmer Rouge, of Mao, and the Chinese. We're talking hundreds of millions of people being murdered, starved to death, killed. They lived through that. They knew it. And they're gone. And now they know, the deep state knows these people are no longer around to witness and tell these young kids. So what do? Now they implant people into the educational systems, into the colleges, into the schools, to teach them that the Constitution is a piece of shit. We got to get rid of that. We need free everything. We're going to give you free food. We're going to give you free schooling. We're going to give you a living wage. And this is impossible. Everybody with any with any sense of knowledge knows. I mean, that's like $90 trillion to do that, and it's just for power. It's just to get Trump out, get them back into power.
I would be more generous to AOC. I think she actually is well-meaning. I empathize with living in a big city like she lives in New York City.
I think she believes
it's completely dysfunctional. And so it's easy to sell yourself that idea that society itself is in its current state is broken and has
it needs some changes. I'm not like a total we do need programs. We need certain things. My own girlfriend has.
Do I think that she's misguided how she's going about it? Probably. Yeah. I mean, probably definitely. But
she just needs to be reined down a bit and understand that the Green New Deal will not work. Okay, let's think of something else. Think of something better and start working with the president. Start working with. And we both know there's rhinos. It's to me, it's both sides. I'm not like on one side or the other.
To me, the modern social. I graduated from college in 2011, so I was at kind of the very beginning of that process where they're taking the especially people in the humanities.
Say again where you graduated from. We lost you for like 1 second when you said that.
I graduated from the University of Utah in philosophy. It was in 2011, so it was kind of before this whole process of really indoctrinating people and I feel like I got a pretty solid education in rational thought, objectivity, the scientific method, the Socratic
you had
method,
to be able to have written what you just did.
Reasonable debate, really being able to think critically about things. And
you went to the right school. I mean, possibly. I think there's a lot out there, though, that do swing so far in the other way. Yeah, because I don't want to be that conspiratorial, say it's every school. It's not every school, but they're well placed into
a culture, and there are people gaming the system. There are powers that be that are up to no good, influence.
We can't live under socialism,
trying to
man.
Infiltrate and influence it. Yeah.
It only leads to tyranny. It'll only lead to death. And it's not even that they want socialism. It's only a stepping stone. From there, then you go to world government, to the whole new world order, which is very real with the APAC of the plan for a new American century, which anybody can look up, that this was their plan. It was a 16-year plan. And one of the steps in it, though, is to go through a phase of socialism. And here's where the AOCs of the world and some of these other people that I think more, Nick, that they're being used as pawns. And that's more of what I meant. I don't think she's evil. I think just that she's been indoctrinated and taught this so much, kind of like Barack Obama and how he was indoctrinated, that because
I think she's too young to be fully evil.
Right. I mean, your brains don't even fully develop until you're 25 years of age.
Right.
I'm sure she's over 25. I don't know how old she is, but it just shows you. Most people don't realize that. And then they want to make the voting age 16. Do you see the problem with that? You can't. Even at 18, it's tough.
Well, the Democrats right now, man, they're just coming up with wacky idea after wacky idea. None of that stuff's going to stick. It's all it just sounds crazy. And it's really sad to see that is it that large of a segment of the population, or is it a radical field?
I don't think so.
Hijacked?
I think it's not. I think that a lot of it's fake. It's paid for, because I've witnessed that personally. When I was in my 20s, I was very liberal. Like I said, I was a deadhead. I was very liberal. I worked for one of the biggest groups in the nation. It was called Citizen Action. They were bigger than Greenpeace. Okay. And at the time, they were making us work on the single-payer healthcare system. And we were supposed to go out. I rose in the ranks really quickly, too, because I was just really good at what I did in raising money. They made me a program director in Atlanta. Supposed to collect 1 million signatures and contributions. Okay, now hear this. I will go and testify in front of Congress to this. We didn't even collect 10,000 signatures. Okay, they told the media, because this has been going back. It's not just today that they're fake. They've been fake for a long time. And of course, this was CNN. This was in Atlanta and Ted Turner. But they said we collected 1 million. And I knew there wasn't. And they took a picture of us and put us on the cover of the Atlanta Constitution with this big pile. And if you just looked at the first top 100 pages, you see all these signatures and stuff. But if you went below that, it was all blank paper, Nick. It was all blank paper. I will swear to that. Yeah, it was a total lie. And that's when I learned. It was the first thing that taught me about truth and reality and what was really going on. From both sides, too, not just, but what can happen in politics. That, again, and that's why I describe the difference between politicians and statesmen, and, just that got to get back to understanding that the Constitution is all we need. So you can throw any pretty word you want in front of socialism, and it's still socialism. It still leads to death. It's how Hitler did it. It's how they all did it, by promising all these free and wonderful things. Germany did do wonderful things for the Autobahn and buildings and structures, but then, of course, that doesn't make up for the evil atrocities they did. But they got away with it because Hitler gave everybody a free radio. I don't think a lot of people know this. Every single citizen of Germany got a free radio. And you know why, obviously, Nick, because of what you were talking about. You'd be definitely smart enough to know, to control them through entertainment. So you would be listening to a show, but then, of course, when he came on to do one of his, orations of how incredible he was at that, right? You wouldn't miss it. You couldn't. But it was the only radio
to draw the parallel.
Yeah,
draw the parallel. So that was Guglielmo that invented the radio. And did you know that for 15 years the radio just ran wild? It was completely unregulated. Anyone with a ham radio could literally send off their transmission, and whoever was in the vicinity, whoever was on the right channel, could pick it up and hear it.
Get on there.
And then the government realizes the power of the new medium of communication. And it's actually remarkable how slow they reacted. It's like they mean to roll it out. They mean to give us the power to create, but then about 10 or 15 years.
Messing with themselves.
It's like a 10 or 15 year cycle where all of a sudden they have to regulate it and control it all.
Yeah. Let it run its cycle for a little bit.
And
You know
that's what
what? To
happened with
learn
the
as
web.
much as they can. If they let it run, they're going to learn about people. So let's say back then at that time, 30s, 40s, whatever you're talking about with ham radios and the radio, they're going to be able to listen and collect, not like they can today, but still at a rudimentary form, information about people, the Red Scare, and the communists. And they went too far with that stuff. We all know that. But it is still not something we want within our country. But obviously, again, like I said, they were going way too far. They were murdering people and stuff. It was sick. So you can't do that either.
I have faith that the soul of America, it's not as dead as the deadened culture. That when I say I'm in Hollywood and I think it's a darkness, I think that they're sending the signal of everything. Everyone is a zombie. Everyone.
Oh, we were talking about that. Yeah, I think there's more people.
I don't think it's the reality. I think they're trying to make there's a tyrannical spirit that has infected the highest sectors of our cultural.
No, you're right. You're right.
Creative infrastructure. It really is a cult.
It's a much smaller group than people think.
It's a cult that believes by working together, the elite can control the masses' minds, and they've believed it for thousands of years. This is really nothing new. It's just their power is just being amplified, and I believe unveiled unintentionally on their part by the technology.
It's the end game. I think it's the end game. I think they got no choice. They're making it seem like a good thing. Right? Socialism is a good thing. All these things are good things. It's just
getting rid of hate speech is a good thing. Right.
Yeah, or Nazis. The word Trump's a Nazi.
You can't trust them. You can't trust their algorithms and how they frame them. They're not picking up the nuance between the Manifesto murders, a novel, a work of art, and like violence. So that's how they use this big broad brush, and it is actually scary to see tyranny rising up like this in the United States.
Oh, they're very, very afraid right now.
What I don't think they realize is that they're activating a higher order intensity. And I get into this. It's fun to explore Agent Holmes, his character development, because in the first book, he's just trying to figure everything out.
Well, the more they do, the more they're going to empower them.
He's a little bit more powerful. He's a little bit more on the cutting edge. And it's fascinating to get to that point where you realize, like, we're not going to cower to this tyranny in the United States of America. That's not what happens in history. That's really not. And so
it's happened to
you start to look at these guys in Silicon Valley with their culture of like censorship, and you see the Federal Reserve is a taped together thing, man.
Oh yeah, right now.
Anyone who looks into that knows that it's
central banks.
It's a hoax that sadly we've all been a part of. That they get to print the money from thin air and then loan it out on interest.
13, and that's
so you see these wobbling pillars to the entire power structure. The key is to remember this. It is not a wobbling pillar of Western civilization. If we can get back into philosophy, if we can get back into creativity, if we can get off our smartphones, if we can stop being programmed. And I don't mean to sound like I'm lecturing or,
You're not at all. You're giving great advice. What did I call my thing yesterday? I called it the philosophy. See how you just use the same. I'm using the same terminology too.
But this shouldn't be radical or new terminology. Philosophy is the basis of rational thought. It undermines science. It underlies science, rather.
But the everyday man
undergirds religion. It is the fundamental guidepost and anchor that allowed us to evolve from basically chaos and darkness. And there's no interpretation of history that would see it otherwise. It's not up for debate.
No, it's not up for debate. That's what I meant about the Constitution too, as a philosophy. Remember me talking about John Locke and then his philosophy and how it led to, the formation and then with,
we would be
Thomas Paine. It's philosophy. There's nothing wrong with the words.
Our whole conversation's coming full circle now. Yeah. We're talking about the education system. I don't even know how we got into that after talking about the
No, I love this conversation because we're getting into a lot of really cool stuff.
Well, there is a clear through line to it as well. We're battling a very dark control system now, but it's amazing that we're on this level, and it feels like we're winning. It really does. It felt like they thought they could intimidate everyone, and we wouldn't stand up. And
they slow dripped it.
On every level we are.
Decades,
culturally,
decades,
politically.
decades.
You know what I mean? psychologically, personally, interpersonally, we're standing up to it, and they're scared and they're frightened.
But go back to what you said, Nick. I want to address that because I do believe
it. Crumbling. We're crushing.
It's not as many people as you think.
Makes me emotional, man. It makes me want to freaking cry.
Well, me
we're absolutely defeating them, and it's not any one person. It's humanity's rising up to meet a system that wanted to control its mind, and we're crushing it, and it feels great.
We are. Look, what I wanted to say was that, just to agree with you, it's not as many people. And this goes back to my thing about Atlanta and the lies of what was going on. It's all, look at what the left hand is doing. Don't look at what the right hand is doing.
It's such basic stuff. Once you really study what's going on, that's why I have faith that more and more
the role they call the Trump train, and it's not even Trump. It's just about America and the change, because we're not always going to have Trump. Who's going to be the next person? They're going to have
Trump is a new archetype, though. He created a symbol of a swamp-proof president that can go in and play 5D chess and win. And
he's got to get rid of the top biggest ones, and then the next one can deal with it and work based off that foundation.
Why they're really mad is because he's shown a new example. There's a new, we have a president in there that says a bunch of fake promises like they always did, and then never does anything. That will never work again. That's what I mean. I really believe,
I love it.
On a long enough timeline, we're crushing the New World Order, or whatever it was, whatever this control system was. It's collapsing.
It wasn't as
and
big.
Its final mind trick will be to convince us. Just let me finish this one time. I feel like the final mind trick that's coming down the road is to convince us that if they collapse, society is collapsing. But there's a huge distinction there. Yes. If we already have the creative models to put in place a new system, then we can responsibly, politically, it can play out in the news. We can have a 3 to 5 year adjustment period. We can transition into a new system. People's money won't disappear. People's money won't disappear because the private Federal Reserve has been audited and reformed.
Yeah. No, you just get me fired up, man. That's all. That's why I'm just yelling like when you're yelling to say things. I'm like, that's exactly what's going on. But I do. And I think people need to understand that we don't even know each other. We're talking about something. I haven't even read the books. And we're hitting on points, and you're finishing my sentences for me. It's like, meaning in a good way, that it's not as big. I want to go back to that. As people think, these people.
Well, we're building a new narrative, and it's an important process.
They get paid to protest. I don't know if people know that. It's in Craigslist. You can go, like even Charlottesville, all these different places. And maybe I shouldn't say that because that's going to be a trigger word for people. Let's go to other ones. Anywhere you go, and it's on the other side too, they're paid. So when you see all these people that are marching, there's maybe 10% or 15% that are actually out there thinking that they're a part of some type of major movement. Right. When the movement is happening at home, it's happening within people's minds, which I think is more important anyways. It's got to happen within the soul and mind and spirituality first before any of that can happen. But yeah, those fights and all the things that you see are not scripted, but they're like, paid protesters to be out there to cause problems and show people fighting to make it seem like, again, control, that we are fighting whether it's sex, religion, or it's your...
I sent out a tweet. I don't judge the effectiveness of my thoughts by the number of likes I get on a tweet anymore. I've transcended your false system of control. So I had an amazing tweet the other day. I said, the fundamental conspiracy, and there's more fundamental ones, but this was the thought I was going through. That's what's cool about Twitter, is it captures you in your stream of consciousness, kind of like a podcast.
So much better than Facebook.
And the tweet was, the fundamental conspiracy is that there is a secret group at the core of our civilization. They print all the money from thin air. Research a fractional reserve banking system.
Yeah. And people are aware of that, much more aware today than
through the officially secretive owners of these commercial banks that owned the private Federal Reserve, and the whole community, the carefully curated intelligence and banking community, and the elite and the board of governors, and the symbolic importance of the president, always choosing a governor from this sort of established
Sure.
notion of what banking and all of it is. And the ability for them to control the way humans think about money and value is very fascinating.
Well, don't you find it comes around full circle too? Because it started with the church and then with the Knights Templar, and that's where it kind of began in backing both sides of a battle.
You just gave me chills.
Well, that's where it is, and that's where we've been.
Once again, that's back to the Illuminists. Not that I think everything relates back to my books. I know sometimes it can seem that way when I'm talking.
No, that's all right, man.
It's because I've tried to actually do all of these concepts and the understanding and the enlightenment that I've gone through. Justice.
I'm gonna love to see how you've woven all this together, because it's very cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, of course. Like I said, I try to get people on there, like the guy with Gnosticism and his own theory. You guys are very much the same without really being the same, meaning that he's in his late 30s, whatever, it doesn't matter. But he's a normal guy, and he came out with his own theory of everything. He does not have a physics background, but here's the but. He had the strength and empowerment in himself to be able to come out with this, put it out in front of the world, and to allow people to look at it with no shame and to critique it. And he's looking for the mathematician, like we talked about, to prove him either wrong or right. So somebody your age that can see these things that are going on gives me hope, Nick. It gives me hope that we aren't done, because I'm almost at that point. I'm telling you, I've been talking about that with some people
this isn't
there.
From my perspective,
close to civil war.
Maybe I'm more of an anomaly than I even know, which I don't think I am,
I hope not.
The response to my books, though, it's not primarily from the millennial generation. But,
Where is it? Do you see your demographics? Are you able to?
Well, it's a scattershot still, but it's primarily conservative, just because the way that ideas.
No, I'm talking about age. Are you getting younger people reading them?
Yeah, there are. It's not that there aren't, but the majority, I would say,
of course it is
people who have had a longer time to season, so that they're to the point where they feel like they would understand the nuances probably of an FBI thriller, Yeah. I don't know how
you got to have that time over the wisdom of living a number of years. You've got enough time. Once you get into your 30s, 40s, things start to change and you start to kind of figure things out. And that's the problem.
You realize how close
instead of being a rebellious teenager today, this is the last thing. It's different now. These kids are so radicalized. Everything is a trigger to them, as they call them, the snowflakes. It's like, it doesn't matter what you say to them.
Right.
They know what's right and they know what's better. They know history. It's impossible for them to. And that's what I meant by now. They're just going to throw out their own history because people are dead that know the history, that could teach them and sit them down. Pull up a pew, kid. I'm about to teach you some wisdom. I'm going to tell you like it is.
Yes.
And they're gone now. And now they're just going to be told whatever truth
Well, it was amazing when we had, and this is why we have to fight to get it back, when we had a truly free and open internet that you could trust, and it hadn't been bottlenecked into these three major companies, Facebook, Twitter, and Google's YouTube, and it wasn't controlled like cable news. So in terms of where we're now in a dark age, but so I can see where your despair is coming from.
From my age, it's just because of that, and
because you've seen it deteriorate. But from my perspective, I have a much more powerful reason to be doing what I'm doing than they have to be trying to stop me.
To stop it. Yeah. And I've been dealing with this stuff and my thoughts, even at my age, for a lot longer than most people. Like, I joked around about that 11/11 thing. I've been seeing that since the early 90s. Nobody even was talking about that on the internet until like the early 2000s. It started to come around where people were saying, do you notice that, this 11/11 thing? And then it just exploded. But I saw it all the time and just blew it off. But it was constant all the time. 11/11, 11/11. So I don't know why. And maybe it's just because
I have explored
in my life.
I have explored the coincidences with certain numbers, and 11's one of them.
Yeah, 3. Yeah, 11's huge. my main number in life is 9. It always has been 9. For whatever reason, it's 9. Plus, as I fooled around with the number and found out all numbers, all break down to 9. Every number, doesn't matter what it is. And then I have a fascination, obviously, with infinity, because then you can have different types of it. You can have infinity plus 1, which sounds weird as hell, right? But there's a real thing called infinity plus 1.
Right.
Then there's the paradoxes.
What's the technical term for that? I think it's called something.
I can't remember. Yeah. But because I'm just starting to really get into it. But there's 3 of them, types of infinity.
Infinities, yeah. I think I think I heard that from Michio Kaku or something.
Probably, because
our culture's not all bad. You gotta love Michio Kaku.
I do. I've been getting into Elon Musk a lot, and I really feel
Elon. I think his name's Elon.
Elon. Sorry, Elon. You're all right. But I see a man after I saw him on Rogan, and they were talking about DMT, and then they were talking about AI and the singularity. I knew this man has already figured out that he can't win. He is not going to get across to Google, Facebook, and all of these, whoever else is doing it, who knows who's doing this out there. Yeah. And that it is already become, because they're using a different type of learning.
Isn't that famous viral? I think it was his viral video on YouTube. It's already
he was smoking pot, he was drinking.
Oh no, that was Joe Rogan. Okay. There's a pretty cool clip out there. It's pretty short too, and I think it's just Elon Musk. It's already too late for the AI thing.
Yeah, because I saw in his eyes, I just watch, I'm good at that. And I think it's just because of the Asperger's in me, the very mild Asperger's. I noticed his face and just his expressions and the way he'd look off. And that's why I believe he's doing the Neuralink. And he's told that, look, if you can't beat it, join it. That's the only savior I think you have for it, is to join with us.
He wants the good guys to get ahead of the game, and I agree with
right. And that's the only way.
It's a military posture. It's kind of humanity's first sin, right? The original sin of just if we're not ready to kill them, they will kill us. And it's the same. It's too bad that it goes to straight out warfare, but that's human nature.
But I think he's seen it's the only answer that he has. And I wish he'd stop making cars and start focusing on this, be the head of think tanks. That's where we need this guy. He's so damn smart. And I was going to say, Cosmic Librarian on Twitter, and I love her to death, and she may be right, has said, I don't trust the guy. I just don't. I don't know what he's doing.
Well, it's scary. And at Perceptions today, we've been having a chat.
Yeah,
and
I love Paul to say,
he also is very skeptical of it. And they showed me a link that it was pretty intense that he already actually is testing it on rats and stuff.
Yeah. But you'd have to, is my point. You'd have to do those things. He's going to test it on himself. And I'm going more on a faith thing because of what I saw.
As long as he'll test it on himself, I would trust it. I would trust it more if he tested on himself.
Oh, he's going to. I'm sure he's going to. He said that he was going to test it on himself first. And it's just his thinking. I love it because it's Occam's razor. He's not being so egotistical to say, I'm going to beat it. He's actually so smart that he's admitting, because you got to know your strengths and weaknesses. And he knows,
you can't just say, we're going to turn off AI or we're going to build the AI board.
So I got to join with it so I can watch it. Mm-hmm. That's the only way. And I kind of see something in that. Now, that might change. I might change my mind a month from now, depending on what he does. But I saw that in that video and in his voice, inflection, which I've been trained to do because I've been doing it my life.
This is fascinating, and I'll tell you, this is coincidental because the third Aiden Holmes thriller, just to get it out there, it's going to be called Deep Silicon, and it's going to be very highly targeted at the issues of AI and big tech and Silicon Valley. It's got to be.
I think that's your next. That would be
it's just the natural trail of thought is going there, so it's pretty fascinating.
Let's go back to that because we haven't gone all over it. I've loved the discussion. I mean, I just love it. So tell me, because I know the Illuminist and the Q source is, like you said, it's more of a standalone, and
it's like a fairy tale. It's a super ambitious science fiction that goes into spirituality and psychology.
Why don't you explain this one a little bit more than me just reading the thing off there in your own, not giving away too much. Yeah, because I almost find this one to be the most interesting.
I could talk about the Illuminati. I mean, the Illuminists will be around in 50 to 250 years. I know it.
That's my like intuition in reading them and looking at the three. This one is just, to me, it's calling to me. It's calling out to me that to be read, that I'm
That's
going
amazing.
to resonate.
I think of it as really a giant hero's journey structure, like a Star Wars or a
mythos
level type of thing. And
really,
it definitely is not the most well written book yet. I actually plan to revisit it now that I've written 2 more. I feel like I know how to write them more for public consumption. Not that I didn't obsess and slave over it, but
right.
It's just that
creatives always do that.
It's a little highbrow, man, and it's highbrow, and it's religious and it's shocking, and where it all leads is.
Well, you're looking at it from a fiction point of view, so why would you say that it would be highbrow?
It just
out of curiosity.
I guess it's my own ambition, and it's what drove me to write it. And it's a certain tone. Like once you've been an author,
if it was nonfiction,
once you've been an author for a while, you really start to hear the different tones and things, and understanding how.
I get it.
It's a little bit more philosophical than the majority of the population can go at this time. But that doesn't mean that it's not written with an eye on the future.
You're saying they're not quite ready specifically for
culturally. We aren't quite ready to pull back the full veil and see it all. Even though I see in pockets, it's happening all around us. I mean, the Illuminist covers everything from DMT.
What about
to Neuralink? It's like I don't even know how I wrote it, dude. I really don't. What was that?
Yeah. I just threw out disclosure alone. Alien disclosure is a massive thing that is, look to the right, don't look to the left. No one's even talking about it. And I have a feeling that's going to come out here in the next year or two, or maybe even tomorrow. We're that close because of that spiral effect of, again, living
because they
in a
need
time
distractions.
That is so crazy. Yeah. Well, it might not be real. It could be the whole Werner von Braun.
I'm not saying it wouldn't be real, but I'm saying it wouldn't also be that they didn't need a giant distraction at that time.
But there is a theory that it wouldn't be real, that Werner von Braun told his secretary, we were going to go through, did you hear about this? These different stages, and it would start with terrorists first, then it was going to move, actually it was communism, then it was going to go to terrorists, and he had died before any of this happened. We were going to have a major event, and then the next thing to control people was going to be an alien agenda that wasn't real, but they were going to use it as a way to control us. I find that to be mind-blowing.
I've heard that.
That this man, he did this and told her all this and then passed away, and it has happened exactly.
Was that Stephen Greer's hypothesis? Do you know?
No, it was von Braun, but it's been spoken of by these people. I guarantee it, because in fact, where you're thinking of, Greer interviewed the secretary that had the information. He would sit there with her and discuss these things with her that he would not discuss with other scientists. He just trusted her. So he would explain these things of why he came here, Germany, why they did, and that Roswell and all these things were real. They did back engineer stuff. They sold a lot of the information to private companies, and that's why we have cell phones. That's why we have all that. So
in QTEL, all of that. There's always a bigger story to why we have the incredible technologies we have.
Right. I mean, it is going to spiral and become faster and faster, but for how far we've gone in the last 100 years, man, I mean, it's, and now it's doubling like every 3 months. What would happen? I can't remember if it's 100 or 1,000 years. It might be 1,000 years that every 3 months we're gaining that much data and that much information.
I would believe it, man. I would believe it. I can't believe the things they do. I'm
pretty sure that that's accurate.
I can't believe what's going on. At a certain level, if I were just beamed in now, I would say this society is being controlled by an alien species.
Yeah, it's a prison planet.
It doesn't even know it. It can't admit it. It can't come to admit it.
No, I can't. And I hate to take from Alex Jones, but prison planet is the perfect word, man. I have a joke with some friends when I say what we really are.
You hate to take from Alex Jones? I think Alex Jones.
I like Alex. In fact, I like him as a person, but he's
been totally painted into a corner. He's been painted into a corner. Well, he made some mistakes, but he got painted into a corner.
Yeah, he's all right. He's fun. He's fun. That's what I like about him. He's fun. He gets in the faces. He did break out. He did a very good job at the Bohemian Grove stuff. So there's a lot of good stuff he did. But Damn, what was I going to say now? It wasn't about Alex Jones. It was important too. It was, this is why I see a neurologist. So short-term memory is shot.
No, so you're talking about the cultural moment, how it's like asymptotic, how it's exponential changing technology to a point.
Well, I don't know. I can't remember. But anyways, but yeah. But
as Terence McKenna would say, it is the transcendental object at the end of history, and we're all in its gravity.
We can't catch up to the amount of time and of what's going on. Then you got the breakaway civilization that everybody talks about as well, with the this hidden space force, and
maybe that could be the fourth.
Man. I'm like a Renaissance man. I don't know.
Maybe that could be the fourth Aiden Holmes thriller.
Dude, that's a big one. That could be very real. There was a guy, I can't remember his name, and he used to take his telescope and point it, and he had it configured in such a way that he was getting pictures of craft all over orbit, everywhere. And it wasn't this.
Did you hear the Navy just came out with new protocols for handling UFO sightings?
No, they come out with another handbook, because I know about the older one.
That news, I saw that yesterday. That just came out.
Really?
The Navy has a new one. Yeah.
See, so maybe they are planning for this.
There you go.
This closure. But you need to see this guy's videos, man. I'm telling you. I'm going to remember the name and I send it to you, because they shut him down so fast. They had black helicopters all over this guy's house, and he was filming it. It was everywhere. But you can see, and you could just make out these big, massive ships in orbit around the Earth. I mean, just stuff that, and then you add that with Buzz Aldrin making that statement about Phobos and the monolith on Phobos. You look at what's on Phobos.
That was a bizarre
That is a monolith, man. That thing is a perfect rectangle standing up on Phobos.
Didn't he say that on Alex Jones, though? Wasn't that on Alex Jones?
No, and I've seen it. No, it's on mainstream news. You can go look it up. You can see the photos. It's never been debunked. It's there. It's there. And he maybe did on the show. I don't know which show he said it. Like, no, it wasn't. It was on C-SPAN, Nick. It was on C-SPan. That's how legitimate it was. Yeah, it was on C-SPAN. He said,
not that C-SPAN is any more legitimate than Alex Jones.
Okay. Fair enough.
We're in some crazy times now.
Yeah. That's where we need to go, though. We really do, and see what's going on there. And when the Russians, way back, well, I say way back, not that long, they shot some probes off that were shut down from Mars at the time. There was like 2 of them. And of course, that's where Phobos is. I think there is something going on there. And it's not just...
There probably is. And I take it back. C-SPAN is pretty much just transparent. You're just watching Congress.
Yeah. But I know what you were saying, though. Yeah, I know what you meant.
Yeah. But as far as Phobos and the Mars thing, I know nothing about that.
You need, when we get off, just image it. Just look up Phobos monolith and take a look at it, man.
Will do.
It will destroy you when you see this thing. The work that Richard Hoagland has done with Mike Barra, with the hexagon on Saturn, and with specific sacred numbers that they have found within Saturn and Mars, all across the face of Mars. That stuff
it's hexagonal, right? That's got that hexagonal storm at its pole. And you hear the sound of Saturn. That's another thing.
I'm okay with it. I'm skeptical. I don't believe.
At the end of this, have you ever heard the sound of Saturn?
Yeah, I've listened. Okay. It's beautiful. Yeah,
listeners, if you haven't heard that, go YouTube right now. The sound that Saturn makes. It is
everybody out there do that. Yes, listen to that. And every planet has it. Uranus, they all have it. Yeah, the gas giants actually do. So it's Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus. I'm not sure if Pluto does or not. I still consider it a planet. Damn it, but. But I know Uranus, Saturn, definitely, and then Jupiter all have like a song, let's call it, that it puts out there.
Right, a vibration.
Frequency. It's a frequency. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so where, tell people where they can get you. But do you have a website?
I do, yeah. It's just nickairus.com for that. And then I have links that go through to Amazon there, or you can buy them straight off the site and I'll sign them and ship them to you.
Awesome. And I'm going to make sure and get all of your links will be in the show notes for people. And And then obviously they can pick up your books anywhere, because I'm looking at it here on Amazon. So I'd imagine, can they get them through your own site as well? How would you prefer them to get them?
Right now, Amazon. I'm trying to drive up the sellers list. And if you can leave I'm still a very, I've only been a published author for a little over a year now. Yeah, if you can give me reviews, that's amazing. That helps.
That is so, you got it.
That's the one way that I can get past the algorithm.
People, you've got to do this for him, because I'm telling you, I am stuck on my podcast at 11 5-star reviews. And for some reason, I get hundreds of listeners. It's gone into the thousands on a few, and it's stuck there. No one will take 2 seconds just to give me just a review, because it's for the algorithm. It's not even about the review. You need to write a review. So people, write a review for Nick. Don't just, the 5 stars is important too, but you got to write something.
And please read the book before you do.
Of course, read it. Because a lot of people will do that.
That's really the point. I could care less about the review. Read the books. Enjoy them.
How weird is that? Why would somebody write a review and not read it?
Don't know.
Well, you know what it is? It's because people tend, and this is why it is that important, is because people tend to only write reviews about things they don't like. And that has to change. They needed a different system. People that hate a product or got upset,
you get really pissed off and you go and give it a 1-star review. Everybody's been there. Everybody's done that.
Yeah, of course. I get pissed, but I call and complain. I won't go online and do it, because I know that it's worthless. Just because I've been in the business and doing this kind of stuff for a long period of time. I wanted to tell you something too. I didn't want to, because I'm always obviously jumping in the middle of people's sentences. I always do. But I did some penny catalogs when I was a little kid, and I did a Burger King commercial. I was really little. I was like 4, and my mom really wanted to get me into this, but I couldn't. I'm too short. I'm only 5'4", so I didn't grow, and I hated it anyways. It wasn't for me. This wasn't out in California. This was here in Florida. So it was some minor stuff, but I just thought it was cool when you said that. I didn't want to bust in, because I know how bad I am about that as it is. It's like, I was in a Penny's catalog when I was a little kid. But and that commercial, great. I barely remember it, but I remember it was fun. But
all of that stuff, it's not as satisfying as it seems it could.
No, it's not. What do they call it? I don't mean to say sex, drugs, and rock and roll is another term that they call it. It's not all. I don't know. Whatever, doesn't matter. But yeah, I've learned a lot of that from Wayne as well. And yeah, we need to talk about that at another time separately. I just want to talk to you.
Absolutely.
About Wayne and your books and getting information out there. I want to get you back.
The more like minds, the better. I think that it has to just kind of start to organically grow. And I feel like it is. No. Man. I feel like it is. People are resonating with what
we can make this explode if we get the right time. Yeah, we just got to get some airtime. We get this in front of 90 million households, which we can do. So that would
and that would change the world.
Absolutely. It's synergy, and it's synchronicity of why we met. Like when we met
I believe in that. I believe in that to the core of my being, man. And people who read my books will know that there's an authentic connection to the spirit and to what feels like a strange sense of destiny. That
I hate social media. And I only have it because now I need it for the podcast. I actually got rid of it completely, and I got sucked back in. And then I started doing Twitter, but I only do it now for like you, Perceptions, Darlene, and Cosmic Librarian, and a few other people, Casey, some people. Like I have 2 different personas. One that's more for the podcast, and then the other one, which is more my kind of, I never want to call it politics. It's not philosophy of just, backing what's going on and my, more conservative type views. And so I've got that group.
I've listened to 3 of your podcasts now. I really have only known you for maybe a few weeks, maybe about a month.
Which 3 did you listen to?
I listened to the Founding Father one. I listened to the ones where you talk more about the time wave and the physics, like
maybe
physics
that was
and
the
stuff
first
like that.
one. There was, that would have been the guy that I was talking about that did his Theory of Everything. That has to be him. And then the very first one I would want anybody to, because it's Anthony Peake. Anthony Peake is one of the.
But anyways, my point was, I would review your podcast and absolutely give it 5 stars. You have a great way of kind of cracking these incredibly complex concepts like eggs and letting the yolk come out.
I just let it go. I don't know what it is. And it might be all total bullshit. I mean, I don't know, but you got to think. And I think, here, I'm going to leave it at this because this is about you too, guys. This isn't about me and my stuff. This is about your books and your stuff. But I have this statement I've been saying because I hear it more and more lately now that, and it's an ancient statement that, the more we think and the more knowledge we gain, the less we know. So what's the point? I am so tired of that.
Because that was Socrates.
Yeah. And that needs to be shelved. Okay. We know that. And we know it's true. We're never going to know everything just because of our makeup and our senses and the way things work. But do not let that hold you back. And I think it's holding people back because they're getting to a point where it's their own idea, but they don't trust themselves. They don't think they're smart.
It's a misinterpretation of the statement. So
it is.
It's a deep point within, it seems that it's in epistemology, that what it's saying is, which is just a fancy term philosophers use for the study of what can be known. Right. And so within epistemology, it's making the very subtle point that as you, just like with quantum mechanics, as you study matter, you break it down further and further, you get to a point where it literally defies subscription and can't even be measured. And so that's just like a,
but I don't think we're done. I think we've only scratched the surface.
Right. That's just a microcosm of the big.
Yeah, it is. And my idea of
life is so spooky. There are so many coincidences, aren't there?
Spooky. Dude, it's more like every day it happens to me, and it's happening more and more. And that's what I mean by there's something happening right now at this time.
There's a rising tide, and we're in an incredible time. It's a historical revolution. Absolutely.
A mixture of dimensions and parallel universes. I don't know.
I think that there's a lot going on with human consciousness. Absolutely. And who knows what it is, but
we're influencing.
This has been an amazing conversation, Drew. That was great.
Yeah. I definitely want to have you back on again.
Will do. Yeah.
Now that the craziness is over and my rock star thing over just wanting to talk to you about these different
concepts. And you know what? I know one day I'm going to have a podcast. I actually know what it's going to be called, funny enough. And I already wrote a book about it.
You need one. Yeah, need to have a podcast.
I think I want to call it The Depolarized Show. And I want to really pull apart the false left-right paradigm and just kind of have that be the theme of the show. But that could be a fertile incubator for conversations that could range all kinds of topics. But The Depolarized Show. What do you think of that?
I love it.
I'll have you on. Do. You could maybe be my first guest. That'd be great.
I would
There's a few other people that want to be on it, but yeah.
Yeah, we could do a roundtable always too. In fact, come to me before you start, and I'll tell you all the stuff I did wrong before I started. And I want to give that shout out and tell them on Twitter because I'm trying to get Perceptions and Cosmic Librarian to come on with me and be co-hosts. They're interested, but they're right on that edge, and I really want them to do this with me because I think that they would make for great, to bounce on, because we're all a little bit different. Like in what she was saying about Musk and what I was saying about Musk. They're two different things. I think it would make for a great show. And I'd love for you to be on after talking to you. But I think you would probably serve best by having your own specific one since you have your books. So that makes sense. But
in the future, who knows? We'll see what's going on. It seems like media is going more towards audio and more towards easily consumed formats, and the novel is a bit antiquated in that world. But I feel like
what you need to get Anthony Peake on is what I wanted to say. The same way
that philosophy is not going to fully die. You know what I mean? Writing stories and actually reading books.
No, of course not.
We've really got to have a renaissance with our culture, especially my generation, and really come to realize all the things that we don't even.
Hey, Nick, we get hit with an EMP, like maybe you didn't listen to that one, Dr. Peter Pry.
No, never.
And the existential risk. That's the most important one, I think, for anybody to listen to, because it is so real that it could happen at any moment from an enemy, but it happens from the sun. A coronal mass ejection could happen at any moment, and we are back to the Stone Age. And we'll leave on this because we won't keep going. But this is important. 90% of the population would be dead within 1 year when, because we're going to get hit with it again. If we do not harden the grid, if we do not get with our senators, congressmen, and that's why Pry's there right now. They just wrote, I think, an executive order to start working on it. We don't get this done and something happens between now and then, we're done. And when you talk about reading books, thank God, because that's all we'll have. You won't be able to do anything else. You'll be reading books. So go buy Nick Harris'
get your
books,
stock.
because if you get hit, you're going to want something to read.
But also, as Terence McKenna would say, I am a fan of Terence McKenna, and I've never actually taken DMT, but it seems like he derived a lot of wisdom from it. And at one point he said, we don't know enough about the universe to worry. So at the same time, whatever happens, even if the EMP blast happens right after this podcast, just enjoy the ride, everybody.
Yeah, or we might make it through and come up with something. I mean, look, life, what is that term? Even like they use it in the movie, life has it finds a way. It finds a way to kind of, but then again, as humans, we're more like viruses. The earth might not want us back. So, who knows, man, who knows? Here I am saying.
I think you need to do some neuro-linguistic programming so you don't feel that way.
EMTs help me, but in a controlled setting, folks. You don't just go and do this stuff on your own. Do an ayahuasca ceremony or find somebody that that's done it many, many times, knows what they're doing, and it's only 15 minutes long. And
have you done ayahuasca?
No, but it's really the same thing. But yeah, ayahuasca is like 10 hours of like a DMT trip. I want to, and I'm going to at some point for sure. Go.
So one final question: Do you think that it's a hallucination in the brain, or do you think, like Joe Rogan thinks, that you're actually pulling back a veil?
Yes, we are. Absolutely, 100%. I did it for the very first time alone. As crazy enough as that sounds,
you're seeing higher frequencies that our brain can't. Wow. No,
it's either another dimension or it's real. When you're there, Nick, it is
not a
more real than this
could possibly be.
I don't believe so. You're asking like if I believe. I'm just saying what I believe. I believe that is reality. That is where we come from and where we actually are. This is
perceiving
a projection.
Frequencies or vibrational wavelengths.
Whatever it is.
Otherwise,
it's like if it's a simulated universe, it's where the simulation comes from.
Yeah.
It's the makers of the simulation. Like I said, I'm telling you, it's like this is a cartoon.
No, I agree. That's where creativity.
It's so weird.
Inspiration. That's where it all comes from.
And everybody sees the same.
Like it comes in from a different dimension or something.
Yeah, and they all see the same thing. With LSD, it's different. People see different things, and it helps them with different aspects of their lives if they do it the right way. You got to do it the right way. Again, setting, blah, blah, blah. But that is more hallucinatory than DMT. You're hallucinating, but you're literally interacting with beings that are speaking with you rationally, and also yourself, your higher self.
This is ayahuasca?
No, I'm done DMT. I haven't done the ayahuasca yet. But where I had my past speaking to me, my future speaking to me, and my present, and I knew that it was real. Absolutely. All this stuff already happened because, time is fluid. Everything's fluid. Everything's already happened. Let's end with that again, because it's not about me. It's about your books.
Well, no, it's all related, man. It's not, it's all,
I know, but
we're intertwined with them. So
I don't want people to forget about that. That's the reason.
No, absolutely. Yeah, go out and get the Aiden Holmes Detective Thriller series. I promise. It is a wild ride, and it's very relevant to what's going on in the news. And I think it will help you be more in touch with the actual reality of the events as they're going on in real time behind the scenes.
Might even help people, like you just said, just to be able to get through everything that's going on. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. Look, as soon as I'm done, I'm going to be on here purchasing the first book. So
awesome!
All right, thank you so much, man.
No, hey, thank you, Drew, and thanks to your audience. This has been fun.
This was the funnest one that I've actually done. All the other ones are great; they were phenomenal, but this was fun.
Wow,
I had a lot of fun.
Well, on that note,
yep.
Till the next time,
man. Yeah, just going to play the outro. We'll talk to you later.
See you, Drew.
Thanks for listening, and hopefully you've added something to your knowledge base. Subscribe now, and please give us a 5-star rating. Spread the love, and feel free to leave a kind written review for us. Your humble hosts gain knowledge after every episode. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Pull Up a Pew Podcast. That's PULLUPAPEW Podcast. Again, Facebook and Instagram at Pull Up a Pew Podcast. PULLUPAPEW PEW Podcast, and Twitter at Pull Up a Pew. Again, PULLUPAPEW. Twitter at Pull Up a Pew. Please also consider supporting us through Patreon with anything you feel you can afford at patreon.com/pullupapew. Patreon is spelled patreon.com/pullupapew. That's patreon.com/PULLUPAPEW. We will also be doing shows and supporting the Innocence Project. There can be no greater crime or misery than having your liberty and freedom taken away knowing you're innocent. So thanks for listening. And if you're a new podcaster and want to have advantages we can offer you through our partnership with Asonder Production and Worldwide Motion Pictures, then email us at info@pullupapewpodcast.com. That's Pullapapew, PULLUPAPEW, podcast.com.
Folks, real quick before we completely end, I do want to mention something that I really, really did have a great time with Nick, and I really want to push everybody to get those books because I'm telling you, just in even looking at them, they have so much to say with what's going on today in today's society, number one. And number two, I'm so happy I had a good time because the next series of podcasts that you guys are going to hear are going to be heart-wrenching. They are going to be very, very difficult for me personally to get through and for the other people that are involved, all having to do with this massive cult that is technically still even getting away with some things to this day. So that's all I'm going to say for now. And that's it. You guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.